300 years later, the Loyalists produced one of their most charismatic and extreme leaders, the Reverend Ian Paisley. In the late 60s, Paisley led a popular Loyalist reaction against the civil rights movement, making it impossible for the Unionist government to offer the Nationalists even the slightest reforms.
In the near future in Ulster, whether in prison or out of prison, I'm going to fight O'Neill and
Pan. In the face of Paisley's attacks, the civil rights movement tried desperately to overcome traditional sectarian divisions between Loyalists and Nationalists.
In Uri, 2,500 people are unemployed.
The theory was to ignore the national question, the division of Ireland, and instead just call for social reforms that could have benefited many Loyalist workers as well. The movement's most eloquent leader was a young student, Bernadette Devlin.
Because if he stands up on his own 2 feet and he says, look, I do 40 hours a week and you make a great deal of profit out of my labour, and I'm entitled to a better wage. It's a very simple, very liberal demand. I am entitled to more money for the work I do. Yet that person, if he makes such a demand, can be fired immediately because there are 2,500 people wanting that one job.
The civil rights movement was not the first effort to unite the two communities in Ireland. In the 1790s, the United Irishmen movement, led by Protestant revolutionaries such as Henry Joy McCracken, organised a major rebellion. The movement, which objected to trade restrictions imposed by England, was strongly influenced by the American and French revolutions and aimed to establish an independent Irish republic. Although the leaders of the rising were mainly Protestant and tried to recruit settlers into the movement, the settler community as a whole stayed loyal to the colonial government. And loyal it has remained throughout every single rebellion in Irish history. In the 1798 rebellion, 30,000 nationalists were killed and over 10,000 loyalists died fighting for the English.
Pound to a penny that Ennis, like any other town, has its slum landlord. I would lay a pound to a penny that Ennis, like any other town, has got a great patch of land that is used solely for Yankees to play on. I would lay a pound to a penny that there are quite a lot of families in Ennis paying rents they can't afford for property they shouldn't be asked to live in. That there are people in this town working for wages they can't keep their family on, for men who don't need half the money they're wringing out of the work of Irish people. Therefore, the greatest help that you can give the people in the north is by showing the people in the north that they're not mad. They're not mad for believing. They're not mad for being idealists. They're not mad for thinking that someday, somehow, we are going to achieve the Workers' Republic.
Where, oh, where is our James Connolly? Where, oh, where is that gallant man? He's gone to organise the Union, than to working men they might yet be free. Then who will lead the van?
In the early years of the 20th century, Jim Larkin and James Connolly organised the Irish working class and linked it for the first time to the long-standing Republican movement. This was a revolutionary development, and it led to the most important of all rebellions, the Easter Rising. On April 24th, 1916, Connolly led the Irish Republican Army, the IRA, in an insurrection in Dublin. But the rebels, besides being poorly organised, had little popular support, and within a week the rebellion had been crushed. And then the British government blundered. 16 rebel leaders, including Connolly, were executed, and thousands of nationalists were interned in prison camps in England. Almost overnight, the Irish people began to give their active support to the IRA.
'Twas better to die 'neath an Irish sky than at Subler or Soudel Bar. When from the plains of Royal Meath strong men came hurrying through, while the English Huns with their long-range guns poured hell through the foggy dew. 'Twas England bade our wild geese go, that small nations might be free. But their lonely graves are by Suva's waves, or the fringe of the great North Sea. Oh, had they died by Pearse's side, or had fought with the noble Cattlebrew, their names we'd keep where the Fenians sleep, 'neath the shroud or the foggy dew.
By 1920, the IRA had developed a highly successful campaign that was to become a model of modern guerrilla warfare. Despite mass arrests, Britain was unable to defeat the nationalists militarily, and the British government was forced to concede a certain measure of independence for the Irish. At the same time, they readily accepted the demands of the Loyalists in the north, not to be included in an independent Ireland. Thus, a 26-county Free State was formed in the south, while 6 counties in the north remained under British jurisdiction. The new statelet of Northern Ireland was assured a majority of 1 million Loyalists to 500,000 nationalists. The selected 6 counties also happened to contain most of Ireland's industry. But it was only after a bitter civil war among Republicans before conservative nationalists, backed by the British, were finally able to impose the settlement. It was in this way that British economic interests were protected, the IRA neutralised, and Ireland was divided. And for the next 50 years, the Unionists in the north governed through discrimination and police terror. But the Loyalists were living in fear, haunted by the spectre of the IRA. The Patriot Game was far from over. Derry City, the end of the civil rights movement. Beginning on August 12, 1969, the paramilitary Loyalist police force attacked the nationalist ghettos in Derry and Belfast. It was reaction in its purest form. A violent effort to return to a time before the civil rights movement had existed, when nationalists had been passive and demoralised. In Derry, barricades and Molotov cocktails stopped the police. But in Belfast, the ghettos are smaller and more isolated, and there the police were not stopped. 500 homes in nationalist districts were burnt down, 9 people killed, and over 1,800 families fled south.
In the Belfast area has been in the Catholic area, and it is the Catholic community which has suffered most physical damage here.
Well, this may well be. I'm not in a position to say yet, because quite frankly it hasn't been feasible for many people to go into those areas, as you know, and it will obviously take a very long time to make a count and assessment of all the dreadful things that have happened.